I'm Shelby Williams with Plano City Council. At today's City Council meeting, we had a few topics. One was comments of public interest while we are at Davis Library. For those who have not been following, council chambers at City Hall are being renovated for the next 7 months or so. And so we have shifted council meetings to Davis Library because at the council chambers, we're providing some ADA renovations, fixing some of the echo, providing some accessibility features, and we're installing a Rancor pit, a la Return of the Jedi in Jabba's palace in front of the council dais. So you can see more about that on my previous recordings. We also had a solar eclipse today, you may have noticed. That was a full solar eclipse, total solar eclipse. We were directly in the arc across the United States, and it was freaking awesome. So if you missed it, I'm sorry, I don't know where you were. I don't know what you were doing. You must have been under a giant rock. But anyway, we also had Parks and Recreation Season 7 at the council meeting tonight as we discussed several easements of parkland for temporary construction easements and a few permanent easements. We'll get to all that. First, we appointed the board of the Tax Increment Financing Reinvestment Zone number 5. Say that 3 times real fast. So this is the new TIF zone. So tax increment financing is where the increased taxable value for a piece of land gets taxed by the increment to go to additional improvements in that area. So this is going to be around the Haggard Farms area. We then had a discussion of the Heritage Preservation Grant Program Administration cost funding. Say that 3 times real fast also. So now you've got 6 things to say real fast if you're keeping count. We discussed putting funds toward the Heritage Farmstead Museum, the Plano Conservatory for Historic Preservation, and there was a discussion about project administrative costs being capped at about 20%. Councilman Riccadelli brought up a fantastic point that heritage preservation and cultural arts can be funded through our hotel occupancy taxes. There are only specific purposes that the hotel occupancy taxes can go toward. These are some of them, but over the past 15 years, the portion of spending for our heritage preservation program and cultural arts have not kept pace with the increased revenue from our HOT as we get more business travel to Plano and, hey, eclipse travel. So that is something we determined to look at in our upcoming budget cycle. So the new tax rate and the budget gets voted on in September for the new fiscal year, which starts October 1st. So we're going to look at that for our upcoming budget cycle. We then discussed zoning and subdivision ordinance rewrites. So this is a topic that's very important to me. In 2021, when we passed the new comprehensive plan, a lot of work went into that. Anybody who's been following for a while knows how much work went into that. We appointed a comprehensive plan review committee with 16 citizens, Plano citizens, to ultimately produce the comprehensive plan that we have now. The comprehensive plan guides the growth and development of the city, intended to be for the next 30 plus years. But one of the things that happened is that in this new and novel comprehensive plan, it was novel in several ways, the zoning ordinances that we have stayed in place. It did not retroactively apply to all of our zoning because they are different things. The zoning was primarily created for the Plano of the 80s, which was largely not built out yet. We don't live in that Plano anymore, obviously. We are built out plus. So we have less than 4% of our land that is undeveloped. And the primary thing guiding our growth and development now is redevelopment. And so we are going through an effort. It's anticipated to take about 19 months with a steering committee, pardon me, including 7 meetings with planning and zoning to first perform a diagnostic audit to see where our current zoning aligns with the comp plan and where it does not. And then we want to rewrite our zoning to align to the comp plan. So there are 2 very important distinctions to make. I should say a very important distinction to make between 2 things. First is the zoning ordinance that determines things like development standards. that is not how a piece of land is zoned, which is the other thing that these two things bear distinction from one another. Like my house is zoned for single family. Okay, my whole neighborhood is zoned for single family. It is not zoned for light industrial, for instance. The zoning ordinance rewrite is going to address things like development standards, parking, etc. It is not and cannot unilaterally change how a piece of land is zoned in all cases. Both are important things to consider, but rewriting the zoning, just understand that we cannot unilaterally change the zoning everywhere in the city. And otherwise, if I had my druthers, it'd just all be parkland. But that cannot be, so it won't be. So anyway, we're going to go through the diagnostics first to see where the current zoning aligns and does not align to the 2021 comprehensive plan. And then we're going to appoint a steering committee to go through the process. The whole effort is anticipated to be a little under $1 million. That's pretty pricey, but most of that is going to be for public outreach. And given the length of time involved, it's actually, this was pointed out during the council meeting by Planning Director Christina Day, that's about what it cost to produce the new comprehensive plan, because it was, it was done over about the same time period. So that's commensurate. We then had a fairly robust discussion about rules and decorum policy for public meetings. This pertained to any public comments, but specifically comments of public interest. I should say more so comments of public interest, but really any comments. But people can sign up for agendized items, which, we had 3, the easements for the parks. Nobody signed up to speak on those. And I'll get to those in a moment. But then people sign up for comments of public interest. Traditionally, we've had allowed up to 3 minutes per speaker to speak about anything. And we have had people speak about anything, whether or not it was pertinent at all to city business. So this has caused some chaos, some fun, but it also provides an important venue for citizens to speak to us about things that are important to them while we are a captive audience. There's real value in that. In providing citizens that avenue. They can call us, they can email us, but being able to speak at us directly in a council meeting while we can't just mark the email as read and move on or ignore the call or anything, that has real value. So while we are at Davis Library, we have talked about changing things. So it was noted today, and I noted it in my council preview, that we did not have comments of public interest today. Part of the reason for this, a significant part of the reason for this, is because the layout of Davis Library does not really lend itself to security. So what we have determined to do, we have a policy statement that basically says that we want comments of public interest to be focused on items that are pertinent to the city of Plano that the city council can address. So for instance, we can't do anything about school board matters. That's the school board's purview. We can't do anything about state or federal matters. That's state government and federal government's purview. We can address matters that the city council can legitimately vote on. So keep it focused to city business, basically. There's also an element here that we want to recognize staff's time and expense to the city. When we have comments of public interest, we sometimes have people waiting who are being paid by the hour, especially when we have like outside counsel, consultants, etc. They're on the taxpayer dime, and we want to be respectful to the taxpayers for that dime and respectful to the speakers for their time. But we still want to allow that venue for public comment. So while we are at Davis Library, it looks like we're going to move to allowing comments of public interest over Zoom. That allays a number of concerns, but still gives citizens the opportunity to speak to us, which I feel is critical. So now we moved on to Parks and Recreation Season 7. So I'm not going to go through these one at a time. We had 3 items for individual consideration, which considered easements, some temporary easements, some permanent easements. for the North Texas Municipal Water District for construction, renovations, etc. We had a temporary easement for construction by the Rowlett Creek plant. That's for temporary construction easement for phase 2 work over the next 4 or 5 years. We have permanent and temporary easements for the Preston Road lift station, which ironically is not actually on Preston Road, it's on Ohio Drive. Go figure. And then we have permanent and temporary easements for the 121 Forest Main Improvements Project. So as always, you can watch the City Council recording of the meeting for all the juicy details of that. With that, that was our council meeting tonight. I would like to remind you that for the next 7 months or so, we will be at Davis Library. If you would like to sign up for comments of public interest, it will be by Zoom. If you would like to sign up for agendized items on the agenda that you would like to speak specifically to, you can do it through the link that I send out before every meeting with my City Council preview. And you are free to speak to us one of those ways, depending on what you have to say and whether it's an agendized item or comments of public interest. I am Shelby Williams, Plano City Council. I'm also a current candidate for Collin County Republican Party Chair in the May 28th runoff election. Thank you for watching. God bless.